time decision now. Got the jersey off, game time now. So lots of good things today.
We had a good day off, just kind of refresh the mind, kind of get away from the game a little bit, and today back to work and we watched the video, saw what we did wrong, and kind of move on from that game now to the next one. So nothing you can do really much but to move on.
There's been a lot of times this year where we had an effort we didn't like, and the next game was one of our best games, and I expect it'll get different tomorrow.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Oh, see, I'm going to have to beat JT to it. He's a little slow on the draw there. Why? Because
there was like not even a mess there. That was a perfect
in the morning on a Sunday. It's great to see so many of you in the chat already and joining us because, yes, it certainly is early with the early start today. A noon Game 4 between the Winnipeg Jets and St. Louis Blues. So here we are, 10 a.m., getting you set for this upcoming game on Check-In. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's my daughter.
Hello. Morning appearance. I like it. It's like Colby.
It's work day.
Colby's book.
I can't say that Colby's was way better because he brought both his daughters in. So I had to go a little bit. I cut that one in half, and Esme didn't say anything. That's the problem.
Wow.
Yeah.
Next time. Maybe
next time for sure.
Maybe for
game. What our
5.
lines are, Sarah. I have to tell her what our lines are. When you come on, you say this.
I love to see so many people that are saying that, they're looking forward to this game. Some of them are not fans of the noon start. How do you feel about the noon start before we get into everything?
Listen, we had a lot of variety from start time, so why not throw noon in there? At least, and it's so weird. You guys are going to be home by the time one of the last game starts today, which is nice. And Sarah's joining us from St. Louis right now. You're actually in the Enterprise Center right now, are you not?
For it. I wish that it was I am at the team hotel right now. So here I am thinking they had originally said that they were going to put me in the coach's room because the team has multiple buses that head over. So players have obviously already headed over to the Enterprise Center. I stayed back at the hotel so that way I could be here in a quiet space to be able to do this show. And they originally said, we're going to put you in what was the coach's room, where they were doing all their prep. So I was hoping that maybe Scott or Neil and company might have left some pages accidentally behind that I could give everybody.
Hey, so this is what they're going to do in the first period.
This is what the lineup's going to be. But alas,
here. Let me show you something right here.
No, not the case. So just coming to you from an uneventful conference room here inside the hotel.
That's nice of them to lend that to you.
Yeah. So, but the noon start. So how do you feel about it? Other than the fact that I'm going to have to be home and probably still make dinner tonight.
Yeah, that's the fun. I don't mind the noon start at all because
I don't either.
I think with the 2-day break between games to get to this one now is probably the best. Unlike Game 5, which will be starting at 8:30, probably puck drop at 8:50 something. So I'll take the noon start over top of what's going to happen on Wednesday.
Absolutely. I will as well. Yes. For those that maybe hadn't seen Game 5 time being released, once again, it is another late start. So that's what we saw for Game 3. It's what we will see for Game 5. Of course, that game will be back in Winnipeg already. The Whiteout Street Party has been sold out. We've got the game sold out as well. So, but a lot of excitement for it. Okay, so let's get going about today, though. JT, who do we have on the show as we get people set for this?
Yeah, we had great guests for Game 3. We got even better guests here for game number 4. So Scott Sandelin, who's had a great hand in producing a big chunk of the roster for the Winnipeg Jets at University of Minnesota Duluth. The head coach had a big part in developing Neil Pionk, Dominic Toninato, Dylan Samberg, amongst others. Of course, Alex Iafallo. And Justin Falk is, of course, a member of the blue line for the St. Louis Blues. So 5 players in this series, all part of Scott Sandelin's blueprint. And then last, certainly not least, is Mike Kelly from the NHL Network. Mike's going to go over some interesting point of view because it hasn't been the greatest playoff for goaltenders in terms of stats. So he's going to go over that. And then kind of like how big of a part fans have played in this turning around series. Like you just saw what happened. We'll talk about the atmosphere in St. Louis. Look at how Montreal turned things around. Ottawa's alive again because of their fans inside the building, and I can go down the list of teams that have turned the series around because of their performance on home ice. So he'll go over that and give us a pretty good answer. And then certainly, why the Jets power play is kind of not in a good place right now. That could change with the addition of somebody today. We're not quite sure where we're at on that one. You heard in the runway moment there's a possibility that Gabe Vilardi can play today. So we'll hear from those guys a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the atmosphere and how we'll talk to Mike about that. But I think that's something that really struck me.
Yeah.
For game 3. And we've been in the Enterprise Center before during playoff games, 2019. You remember how loud it is, Jamie, just the way it's a large arena, the way, unlike Canada Life Center, where you feel as if really the fans are on top of the ice with the way it's situated, and obviously a smaller building. At Enterprise Center, it kind of goes out like this. But it was so loud. And I think that obviously we can't just say that Canada Life Center is the only spot where the home crowd can make a difference. We've seen it at the Bell Center. We've seen it all across the rink or all across the league with so many of the teams returning home and winning that game 3, let's say. So I think it'll be interesting to see how the Jets respond today. They weren't happy, obviously, from the get-go. And the starts for this team in this series have been a discussion point. Even though they won the first 2 games, still with the starts, that's going to be a point of emphasis going into game 4. And that's something that the players spoke about yesterday after practice.
Well, I think the start of the game, for sure. Obviously, you're down 2 goals, 3.5 minutes into the game. Really put yourself behind the 8 ball. I think execution, playing fast, there was, things they did really well that, limited our ability to get to our transition, to get to our forecheck, allowed them to get on the body and turn pucks over and put us on our heels. I think, as we saw in Winnipeg, when we get to our game, we're efficient through the neutral zone. We're good at turning pucks over and create a lot of zone time.
I mean, they just dictated the pace. I think everyone was kind of able to see that. We felt it, and they came out and they were ready to go. They were physical and they're moving their feet, and we kind of weren't. So, to me, it's just an easy fix to show up ready to go and, bring that little bit more intensity.
For us, when we do a good job with our defending, we don't let teams get away and get to the good ice or get to the high ice. We do a pretty good job of containing, pushing them back into corners, and I thought we were spread out quite a bit. We were loose with our coverage, and it had a lot to do with, again, we were slow to close and allowed them with some ice to either send it over there, the puck over there, or they skated it over there.
JT, I think that one of the hallmarks of the team this year has been their ability to rebound. When we have seen a poor performance from them, rarely do we see it 2 games in a row that they have been able to make the adjustments. And we saw the adjustments that St. Louis made in game 3. They had gone with 11-7 in game 2. They went back to 12-6. They brought Texier in. They took out Ryan Suter and Matthew Kessel on the back end. We'll talk more about the Blues lineup going forward, but that was a change that they made. They wanted to be more aggressive. That was something that they were able to do. Now, how do the Jets make their adjustments? How do they respond? That's something. And just before we bring Scott in, why don't we take a look at what the projected lines are for the Jets? Obviously, no morning skate, so we can only go off of what we saw with practice.
I will just throw up Mitchell Clinton's tweet there, Sarah, about that.
Oh, okay.
Just carry on with your conversation.
And so one of the things that we have talked about when it comes to the Jets is that we've seen the top line be able to produce in those first couple of games, especially with Mark Scheifele, seen what Kyle Connor with a couple of game-winning goals as well. But then we hadn't seen, and this was something that you and I talked about, you were looking to see more from that second line. You felt that they needed to make more of a contribution. Will they be able to do that here in this game? And then some adjustments in practice yesterday were on that 3rd and 4th line. Morgan Barron being moved up beside Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton, and then Brandon Tanev going down onto that 4th line. How will that mix? Will that hold true going into this game? We'll have to wait and see. And obviously it could change based on the status of Gabriel Vilardi. Unknown whether or not he's going to play. Dylan DeMello looked to be healthy and back at it again, but Gabriel Velarde said to be a game time decision. So we'll have to see whether or not he is in the lineup today, or potentially with the two-day break, maybe game 5 he could be back, but he would be a boost whenever we see him return for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, certainly we'll address that a little bit more as we go along in this show on check-in. But for the time being, let's bring in veteran head coach of the University of Minnesota Duluth. That is Scott Sandelin joining us here on this Sunday. Good morning, Coach. How are you on this day?
I'm doing good. I wore my Jets hat for you guys. So just
you know what? You should have that Jets hat because you've had a small part in of the roster on this team. So there's 5 players in this series that are graduate from UMD. How much have you been keeping an eye on the Jets and Blues so far?
Quite a bit. The games have been awesome, but it's certainly fun to watch those guys battle against each other. I wasn't sure if Falk and Dylan were going to get in a fight there in that first game. I don't know what they were talking about, but no, it's been fun to watch them, and obviously it's been a great series.
What have you liked about Dylan Samberg's development? Like we all know how hard it is to play defense in the National Hockey League, but man, it just seems like he took a huge step this season.
Yeah, it's just he's aside from some injuries, right? Again, wasn't sure on that last one either when he blocked that shot, but yeah, I think just gaining confidence, and obviously playing with Neil a lot certainly probably helps that too. They've got a good chemistry, and obviously they know each other, and you play with a little more of a veteran player. I think that really probably helps your confidence grow. But I think he's just rounding out into his game. I think his best is yet to come. I think he's at that age now where, he's going to continue to get better and better. And I think I said when he left here, he could play the National Hockey League for probably 15 years the way he can play. So I think he's on a good track with that. But I think just, obviously having the team they have too, it's really nice to have Hellebuck back there as a defenseman for sure. But just his confidence, I think, obviously physically he's getting stronger, and he's settling into what his game is. And I think that's really important for guys to have success moving forward.
Scott, I just wanted to follow up on, you said, so when he left your program and you said that you felt that he could have a very lengthy NHL career, what was it that you saw in his game, or him, whether it be on and off the ice, that would lead you to think that?
Well, number one, he's a great athlete. He's obviously, don't want to play him on the golf course for sure, but he's got the size. Obviously, he didn't have that when he was younger. He just kind of grew, but his dad's 6'6", so you knew it was coming. Just physically, he's always been a strong kid, kind of that farm boy strong. Which when he played here, it helped. But I think, playing there, obviously the league is a little bit tougher. But I think, just his game, I think in college at times, we have guys that they always still want to push the offense a little bit more. We don't hold guys back, but, we had Prunovic trying to do that back when Dylan was here. But, I think that's a little bit of a trial and error, just settling into just being a good defender, moving pucks quick, using his size. I mean, he's a tremendous shot blocker. He's always been fearless in that regard. He was one of the top shot blockers for us too. And obviously you guys have seen that, but just understanding, that niche for him. And I think that's why you're seeing him continue to grow as a player, because I think he's settling into that. He's able to eat big minutes and play big minutes. And it's nice to have a partner like he's had with Neil too, that I think those guys complement each other pretty well.
Neil just signed an extension here, Coach, and for 6 more years. Can you just speak to the durability of Neil Pionk and his incredible ability to play a rough game, but also provide offense?
Yeah, he's. I think he was pretty excited about that last contract. So who wouldn't be? I just think he was the same way here. When we recruited him out of high school, he had that edge to his game. He had that, offensive ability. It's not probably the high end, but he had that offensive ability and confidence. But he just played with that edge, and I think he's continued that there. And just watching him when he started in New York, and just how he's progressed into a really bona fide, top 4 defenseman in the National Hockey League, that it's been really fun to watch. And durability is right. He takes care of himself in the summer. He trains here. Lives at Island Lake, so we see him every day. All those guys, we have a pretty good pro group here, so It's amazing he hasn't had more injuries the way he plays, but he takes care of himself, and I think he's a consummate pro, and he's a great guy for our players here to learn from, in the weight room, and just how he handles himself as a pro.
You must be so proud, Scott, when you look at, I mean, you've got 6 former players that are currently playing. I mean, we mentioned 5 of them in this series, but just to be able to see the development and the success that the players have had. But then also, as you mentioned, that so many of them come back, and what that can do continuing going forward for your program for the current crop of players that you have.
Yeah, it's that whole group too. The group that when Neil came out, you had Carson Soucy and Dom and Alex Iafallo. It was a really tight group of seniors, and obviously Neil was younger, but they were a special group in 17, and it was probably the best team I've had here. We lost to Denver in the championship game, and then Neil left, and then Adam Johnson was on that team as well. Adam signed in the summer, and Hunter Miska was a goaltender. But it was a really good team, and that group was really, really close. But just to see those guys continue to, have pro careers as long as they're going to have, along with Mikey Anderson's another one that was in that group. So we've been pretty lucky to have quite a few guys off that era of guys continue and be able to play at that level for a long time. And it's great to have them back. We usually see them. A lot of guys make their home here in the summer, which is great. We get a lot of guys back for our alumni golf thing, so that's even better. And then there's always weddings, right? So there's so many weddings. I think there's 8 weddings this summer, but so you get to see those guys. But they keep in touch. And, when you win championships and you have success, those groups are always closer and tighter, and it's a bond that will never they'll never break. So it's great to have them around, and it is a great learning lesson for our young players too, to see how committed those guys are in the summer, and how they work out, and the skating. We have some pretty good skates later in the summer with those guys, so it's awesome for those guys to see that.
Got one more before we let you go. Just with the NCAA, of course, the CHL is a big, major junior hockey is a big story up here in Canada. But with the benefit of the NCAA, what has been told to me is all the practice time you guys get and how beneficial that is for development. Can you speak to that for everybody that's watching today?
Yeah, it's certainly, we're all kind of interested to see how the CHL players adjust. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great players. Our pools become a lot bigger, which is great. Gives kids more options, number one. But yeah, I think, coming here, it's probably going to be a little bit of a difference, because we get guys back here in August and school starts, and then we don't play for a month. So we practice and skill development and those things. And through the week, you're only playing on weekends. So, you have that luxury of having a little more structured week of practice. Obviously the weight training, the nutrition's become a huge part of training. And, so those guys get into that routine, and certainly you see the benefit over the time that they're here, getting stronger, adjusting to even college, before they move on. And it's like I always tell guys, 1 through 5, 5 is NHL. We can get you close to that, but we're never going to probably get you NHL ready, because you need to go through that level there, and experience how to adjust to that level too. But we can get guys close, and but it certainly helps. And I think you're seeing that with the number of college guys coming in and having impacts right out of the gate. Obviously, Byam this year coming in playing playoffs kind of reminded me of Makar and Ryan Leonard. guys that are top players in college hockey are able to step in and play. But it's certainly a benefit, and I hope that as this whole thing shakes out, we're going to kind of see how it all plays out for everybody. But we're excited to have a bigger player pool for sure, and it's going to benefit a lot of teams.
Scott, appreciate the time. Keep producing players for the Winnipeg Jets, and we won't tell Justin Falk you're wearing a Jets hat today. So.
Yeah, he'll be mad at me, but he hasn't sent me a Blues hat yet. So
you got to go with the majority too, Scott.
Yeah.
I do for sure.
Thanks very much, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
Scott Sandelin joining us from his office with championship trophies behind him. He's won a few of those, and many thanks to him for the guys that he's produced, because I think anybody that knows Alex Iafallo and Dominic Toninato and Neil Pionk and Dylan Samberg, just great people too as well. So that's a big part of the
great job a great job with recruiting. I saw some people in the comments say, essentially, any chance there's another couple Sambergs on the roster right now as well. So thanks so much to Scott. Always interesting to be able to hear the perspective of not only other coaches at different levels, but someone that has been able to see those players through their development as well. So a different take on it, which we appreciate. Let's take a quick look before we bring on or play our Mike Kelly interview, because we did tape this yesterday. Yeah. We had to pre-record it because he was traveling today. He is going to be at the Bell Center for the Habs and Caps game, the lucky guy. So that will be another great atmosphere. So we'll get to that in a moment. But we were talking about the adjustments that St. Louis had made and how Winnipeg is looking to make the adjustments as well. One of the things that Jim Montgomery had said yesterday was that he went with the changes that he's looking at making, and I don't know if you have their lines.
I sure do.
There we go, from yesterday. So it looks like Matthew Joseph, who was a healthy scratch for game 3, is going to be back in the lineup. And partly what is, according to Montgomery, is a gut feeling. He thinks that this could be more of a checking game. And Joseph also helps out a lot of their penalty kill. He really liked the confidence and self-belief throughout the series, but the attitude and aggressiveness offensively and defensively in game 3, they are looking to generate again here in game 4. You look at Ryan Suter and Matthew Kessel, both look to be extras again. He was asked about it, obviously with the veteran experience in particular that Suter has. And he just said that he told the guys that this is not it for them for this series, but basically, he's trying to put together, it's a chess game. We all know that. He's trying to put together a lineup that he feels will be able to combat whatever adjustments he's anticipating the Winnipeg Jets making.
All right. You also spoke with Dylan Samberg. Do you want to run that interview before or after Mike Kelly, Sarah?
Why don't we hear from Samberg now?
Okay. Thank you so much. And great job in this, by the way.
Well, Dylan, there seemed to be a lot of pace out there for practice today. Obviously, no morning skate with the noon start. What was the point of emphasis for your group today?
Just getting up there, trying to get our legs under us again and, try and put that last game behind us, make a few changes, and come out here, have a good practice, and make sure we're ready to go for noon tomorrow.
You knew that St. Louis was going to come at you with some aggressiveness. Obviously, this series is all about adjustments on both sides. What's the key to being able to establish Jets hockey early on in Game 4?
I think our start has to be better than theirs, and they've came out hot in all 3 games in the first period, and we got to make sure that we shut them down. It doesn't mean that we have to panic or anything, but we can try and go on the offense early and get one on them early and roll with it.
You mentioned obviously no morning skate with it being a noon start. Thoughts on a noon start? How does that change your day? Obviously there's no afternoon nap.
Yeah, kind of the complete opposite of last game at
8:30.
But we haven't really had too many noon games. I think the earliest I ever had was the 10 o'clock in the AHL, but which that was really early. But no, I think it'll be good. You don't have to think about it too much. You just wake up, eat, head right to the rink, and get the game underway.
With the 2-day break in between, how quickly did you put Game 3 behind you and just turn your attention to Game 4?
I think with the off day yesterday, that was good for guys to kind of clear their minds, and we've had to do that multiple times this year. Put the game behind us. We've had a couple bad games throughout the course of the season, and obviously we don't want to have any games like that in the playoffs, but they happen, and it's just one game, and just got to make sure you put it behind us.
Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah.
It was so cold in that practice rink. I was layered
practice
up.
rinks are always the coldest part. It's not even in the same ballpark as the
great rink, but I could not feel my hands. It was one of the someone off the Jets staff had mentioned, they said, you look pretty cozy in your sweatshirt. And I said, I'm just trying to stay warm right now. Yeah. But thanks to Dylan. And I think again that when he made the point about how they've had good games, or they've had poor games throughout this season, but then they've been able to respond. That to me, we talk about the steps that this team has made this year and the different growth that we've seen them make. That's what I want to see from this team today. That will be another indication to me that they've taken that step forward. Yes, they did it in the regular season. That's great. They've set the groundwork. Now do it in the postseason, because you are still in a hostile environment. And despite the 2-day break, which you know that everyone wishes that it hadn't been, for the Jets' perspective, you want to get that bad taste out of your mouth from the Blues. You're hoping that you've been able to grab momentum for it. I just want to see what that response is from it.
And the fact that they're comfortable in this is certainly not comfortable in losing 7-2, but they're comfortable in realizing that they've bounced back so many times that they know they can put this behind them. And Dylan Samberg seemed very confident when you were talking to him about that fact. Adam Lowry was very casual about that conversation, but you can see the quiet confidence. And same thing with Morgan Barron. And then again, spoken from Scott Arniel from his perspective, because he's just seen it. It's a habit that you can put stuff behind you, no matter if it's good or bad. And there's many, many examples of how well the Jets have done that this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned, Mike Kelly from the NHL Network, he is one of, and Sport Logic, he is one of our favorites. JT and I love, you'll notice if you have watched a lot of check-ins that we reference Mike's work often, because we just find it so interesting, not only what comes up with, but just the way that he's able to disseminate it to the fans, and the way that he's able to make it digestible. But he was kind enough yesterday to give us a few minutes to help us talk about what's been going on in this series here between the Blues and Jets. All three of us really have quite exotic looking locations today. A couple of hotel rooms. We got the office with the cool lighting behind JT. Look, these playoffs so far, I think, have been great when you look across the board for the league in terms of excitement, the storylines, everything. But obviously, when it comes to the Jets and Blues, I don't think, even though people expected the Blues to put up a fight, I don't know if anyone foresaw a 7-2 game 3 going on. What is it that has struck you most about this series through the first 3 games?
Yeah, it's, I mean, Winnipeg wasn't going to go 16-0. If they're going to win a Stanley Cup, right, you got to lose games somewhere. So it's not surprising St. Louis clawed their way back into this thing. And I think you could kind of see some of that coming in game 2. Like when I look at the 3 games, I see like Winnipeg was clearly the better team in game 1. St. Louis clearly the better team in game 2 or game 3, and pretty even in game 2. It went Winnipeg's way. And so you get 2 good teams that have kind of played it pretty close for the most part, even though it was a lopsided game in game 3, and you're at 2-1. I picked Winnipeg to win the series. Our model likes Winnipeg to win the series. They have a 2-1 lead. I don't think there's really been any surprises yet, but this Jets team's really good. And for game 4, they're going to do everything they can to not repeat what happened in game 3.
All right. So with this is as of Saturday morning. It has not been a fun opening round for the goaltenders. It's been a lot of fun to watch as a fan. But as you look at what we see in front of us here, Mike, first off, tell our viewers what a quality start is and why this has been such a hard time for the goaltenders of the National Hockey League in the Stanley Cup playoffs so far.
Yeah, so a quality start is just something that we came up with to measure, goalie performance, but also goalie consistency. How often does your goalie give you a quality start? You can do this at a really basic level by looking at something like a 900 save percentage, right? And the NHL Edge website tracks that, how many games the goalie has 900 or plus, what percentage of their games. This is just a level beyond that where we're looking at factoring in shot quality as well. So it's goals saved above expected. I won't explain that all here, but people can read up on it if they want. The best really isolated measure of goaltending performance, because it does factor in the quality of the shots goalies are facing. If 2 guys get 20 shots, one guy might get 18 breakaways and the other guy gets 0. It's a very different game. So all that to say, what you see here is just, at this point, there's 3 goalies that have been positive in terms of goals saved above expected in all of their starts so far in the playoffs. Not many, considering how many goalies have played in the playoffs. But really just a measure of, who's consistently played well, win or lose. Markstrom's lost a couple games. He's been really good on all 3 of them. So this is the kind of thing that can help show you that.
So how does that relate to the Jets and Blues series when you're looking at goaltending? Because obviously a lot of attention is going to be paid to Connor Hellebuyck and Jordan Binnington.
Yeah, 1 each for these guys through 3 games for 2 goalies that we know can be the best goalie in any given series. Like Hellebuyck is the best goalie in the world. Binnington is not that, but he can be that for stretches. We've seen him play out of his mind. You think about the 4 Nations. when these guys went head to head. In Binnington, it was like he'd kind of let in a soft one, and then it'd get to overtime or something, and he'd make crazy saves and win the game. So it's, I think we saw a really good battle in that sense in game 2. I think there'll be more of them. These are also two good teams, and for the most part, they defend well. I look at St. Louis, and I think Jim Montgomery made a really nice adjustment, putting Jake Neighbors on the top line with Thomas and Buchnevich for game 2 and game 3. And when they've gone head to head against the Scheifele line, since that change, they've dominated that matchup. So there's a lot of wrinkles in every series, and that's kind of one as well that I think has been pretty interesting. And with St. Louis having home ice now for game 4 as well, what can Winnipeg do to try to counter that and find some balance?
Hey, we've seen this throughout the playoffs right now, is that team coming home down 2 games in a series, and outside of the Ottawa-Toronto series, everybody has kind of got themselves back into it. New Jersey won in overtime. St. Louis is back into Montreal. I can go down the list of teams that have recovered on home ice. It's incredible the atmosphere and how much fans can change a whole series, right? That you hear the question, what do you think about the fans? Well, this really comes through in the Stanley Cup playoffs, does it not?
Oh, there's got to be something to it, because the atmosphere has been unbelievable. I was at the Ottawa game 3. I grew up in Ottawa for a time when I was a kid and gone to some games. Like, it's not a notoriously loud building. It was wild how loud it was in there. Probably that I've ever heard or can remember. You see just on TV, you can kind of feel the energy of some of these places. The Bell Center is crazy all the time, extra in the playoffs. I'm in Minnesota for the game Saturday night as well, and I'll be at the Bell Center Sunday night as well, which I'm looking forward to. Yeah. When I saw that one, I'm like, I'm going on my way home. I'm making a pit stop. So
no kidding.
It's been really fun to watch. Winnipeg is. I wasn't at the games in these playoffs, but a friend of mine I was with last night was there, and he couldn't believe it. He's an American. He's just like, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. So it's really fun. It adds another layer to all of this, and it's part of why these teams are clawing back into it. You hear the players talk about the boost that it gives them. So it's definitely a real thing.
Yeah, I say, obviously Canada Life Center, we know from the regular season, and then how it's up to that much more during the postseason. But Enterprise Center was absolutely bumping as well. I've messaged JT and said that, we know how much they can elevate just the crowd noise and how they can feed off of it, especially with the start that St. Louis had in game 3. Mike, I just what is it that you and your team at SportLogic, what is it when you go into a game? You guys have so many interesting stats and so many different interesting perspectives. Do you go in with a list of things that you are watching for, storylines? How do you decide pretty much what you're going to key in on?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sarah, because there's so much you have to find a way to filter out some of the noise, right, and get to the meat of what you believe is important and meaningful. For me, just repetition, having done kind of my job for almost 10 years, you learn those things as you go. I kind of break it into 2 things. There's the ground truths of the game that are always going to matter, which is, quality shots, the type of quality chance, like just things that doesn't matter how you do it, you need to get them to win in the end, ideally. And then it's also trends that you're noticing in a playoff series, styles of play that teams have, adjustments teams are making. I could talk about the Neighbors move by Jim Montgomery and how much that's tilted that matchup best on best line in that series to this point. Forecheck, the forecheck for St. Louis has been problematic for the Jets at times. They have 9 scoring chances as a result of turning pucks over on a forecheck. Winnipeg has 1. So that's just a thing to watch for. It doesn't mean it's going to happen in game 4, but noticing those kind of anomalies and keying in on them and just watching to see, what happens. Philip Gustafson, there's certain things with his game that have been really good that I'm just kind of focused on in this series that I'm here for right now. So that's kind of how I break it down.
Last one for you before we let you go. Listen, the Jets have had they were the number 1 power play in the National Hockey League during the regular season. They have struggled in this series. You saw something as simplistic in the third when Neil Pionk shot. All it was getting pucks to the net. Why is it that a second group can be so simplistic, but a group that's so loaded up like the Jets have on the number one unit, it seems like the second one can get the job done. The top one with all that talent can't seem to find a way to get pucks to the net.
Yeah, that's a good question, Jamie. In general, I think top lines kind of know what they do to be successful. And
Right.
One of the big shifts, like you look at power plays 10 years ago, if you were at 20%, you're one of the better power plays in the league. If you're at 20% now, you're okay. They've shot through the roof, right?
Right.
And you can point right to the understanding of, you call it analytics, call it whatever you want, the understanding of how these goals are scored. The amount of perimeter shots that used to occur on a power play don't happen anymore.
Right.
Teams are always now rotating a whole bunch of guys looking to get pucks into the middle of the ice. It's been a massive shift in just how power plays operate over the last decade or so. This is anecdotal, but a second power play unit that gets out there with a power play that's struggling on a team, their prerogative might just be, let's throw pucks at the net, create traffic, and the other guys are doing their thing. Let's just muck it up and see what happens, which I think in a short period of time can be useful.
Mm-hmm.
It always kind of bugs me to some degree when the first thing you hear when a power play in general is struggling all the time is like, well, I got to simplify, just get pucks to the net, rebound. That's not how great power plays score over a long period of time. So
Right.
I do think it can be helpful in a short term. Of just, let's get some confidence. Let's try to get a greasy one. But you guys, as you know, we've seen how good that Winnipeg power play is when they're kind of going goal line bumper, doing all the things they do so well. And that's what will ultimately, make them successful, I think.
Mike, appreciate the time. Enjoy your time in Minnesota, of course, and then, of course, Game 4 for the Montreal series as well with Washington. Thanks for your time, my friend.
Anytime. Great catching up with you, and enjoy your series as well.
There he is, as I do multiple shots there. Hold on, Sarah, I'm unmuting your mic as well. Your mic was so good. Doug made a very good point in the chat there. The Jets obviously are without Gabe Vilardi, and Nikolai Ehlers also plays a large part in what they're doing on the power play. And then statistically speaking, without Gabe Vilardi in the lineup over the last couple of years, the Jets power play is just like a shell of its former self, which speaks to how important he is to that number one power play unit.
Absolutely. I mean, they're 2 for 10 in this series so far. One of the things that Scott O'Neill had said after the game about the power play struggles was that we shot some pucks, but it's the next ones. Binnington, he's seeing the puck, and then there are rebounds we didn't get to. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, obviously things change if Gabriel Vilardi is able to go, but I think so we might see some adjustments on the power play just based on what we saw in practice yesterday, that can be Kyle Connor switching to the other side, so that you might have on that first power play unit, Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Cole Perfetti, with Cole and Kyle having flipped sides. So we'll see. And then Scheifele down low, kind of in that bumper spot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the power play if they're able to get things going. But also look, the Jets were able to hold the Blues 5-on-5. What they haven't been able to do, Game 3 aside, and let's go through, but what they haven't been able to do well in this series so far is stop them with the man advantage. The penalty kill has struggled. It's around 60% right now. That's not going to get it done either. It's an area that needs to be firmed up for sure for the Jets to be able to have success, not only in Game 4 going forward in this series, and then again, what everyone hopes is a long run throughout the spring.
Yeah. And listen, if you just join us like a little bit earlier, just talking about what the alterations or the changes they have to make, it's like, how about not giving up 2 goals in the first 3 minutes of the hockey game? And and one of the things that I liked about Scott Arniel's post-game press conference after Game 3 is just like they lost that game in the first period. So we talked about Cole Perfetti's non-goal, which was a goal. We flat out we know that, and there's a big conversation about VAR and stuff going into hockey as well as that they have in soccer, but that still probably would not have changed the course of that game because of how poorly Winnipeg played in that first period. So, and James, you're right. Don't take penalties. There was 8 power plays for St. Louis. It just got completely out of control, went off the rails. You could just tell from that first 3 minutes, it was not going to be a good night.
No, and so you put it behind you, move on. I think the Jets also having the opportunity, if they can, to play with the lead. You silence the crowd as quickly as possible, and we know how successful that they were throughout the regular season. When leading after 1, they had a 29-0-3 record. When leading after 2, 41-0-1. So we know, we've seen what leads to Winnipeg Jets success, what their identity is. Hopefully they'll be able to get back to it. And it's just a blip on the radar in game 3, as everyone likes to point out, nobody is going to go and just win all 16-0 throughout the postseason. We haven't seen it happen yet.
Yeah.
And any of this series. So we know, look, this is a good Blues team. We are in for a good series here to be able to watch and enjoy. So sit back, enjoy this game here today. Again, it's a noon start. We're going to wrap things up because otherwise I'm going to be walking to the arena, and it's a
Just pick up your laptop and start walking to the bus. That's what we need.
That's right. I'll take everybody. You know what? I'm just going to take you on a little bit of a picture right now. This is this street. We're going to stop for a coffee. This is, but don't forget, everyone. It's right. It's great to see so many people taking part in the chat. We hope that you're going to continue to join us on Wednesday. It is an 8:30 game. It's closer to an 8:50 puck drop. We will be back to our 12:30 start time. So we'll be able to take you through what the Jets morning skate was, because they are likely to skate around 11 in the morning. And we'll have all the updates for you and be able to tell you all about what happened in game 4. And hopefully you all join us then.
Yeah, White House Street Party for game 5 sold out. Going to be a beautiful evening here in Winnipeg for that one. But let's take care of game 4. And hopefully the Jets are coming home to close out the series with a win here this afternoon. So thank you so much to Scott Sandelin, certainly Mike Kelly as well. Sarah, great work embedded in St. Louis. Enjoy the flight home afterwards, hopefully after a Jets win.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone enjoy the game today. Enjoy your Sunday. And we will talk to you all on Wednesday. Thanks for checking in.
See you, everybody.